I heard yesterday that there was a spar in Parliament between our dear, who was that? Grace Fu, Minister Grace Fu, and two WPMPs, James Lim and who was it? The other one, I think it was Leon Pereira or something, right? Or was it just James? Just James and Grace Fu, right? And then Pritam Singh even had to jump up and say, you know, point of order, all right? One has to sit down while the other is talking in Parliament as per Parliament standing orders. So let's have a watch.
It's true.
I haven't watched it
in
also.
the long run,
Let's
we seek
take a
for
look.
something,
DTOC.
Thank you, Speaker. Just two clarifications to Minister Fu. The first has to do with the notion of whether we are indeed calling for a higher rate. The median I suggested was $100 per ton, and it is true certainly that in the long run we seek for something of that nature for a good reason, as I explained, that it was the midpoint
This is talking
of what
about
is
the
scientifically
carbon
credible
pricing,
and defensible.
carbon
Now,
tax.
that said, I think it's important to distinguish between the level, the appropriate level, versus the manner by which we get to that level, the glide path, if you will. The analogy is to think about how one might choose to target one's weight loss journey. First, you choose a target weight. Let's say I really wish to be 65 kilograms.
Mr. Jameson, what is your clarification?
Yes. So the clarification then is whether the ministry sees or does not see the merits of separating these two decisions about the appropriate level of the carbon tax versus the glide path to get there. Now, my second clarification has to do with something that she said about how businesses cannot operate without certainty when we do not know what the carbon tax is going to be. I'm befuddled because, of course, even now, government routinely alters levers of policy, such as the interest rate. When there is uncertainty on a year-to-year basis about the level of interest rate, yet businesses continue to invest. Put it another way, let's say the ministry telegraphed that it was originally going for 25.
Again, what is the clarification?
I'm getting there, sir. So originally the ministry telegraphed the $25 a ton rate next year, and we entered into a recession. Would she believe that businesses would then be very upset if we said that we would scale this $25 a ton back to something lower to eventually raise it subsequently?
I think Mr. Speaker, Professor Lim started his speech earlier saying that, you know, we have the theory right, but we need to get the implementation right. So I like to maybe ask him for his suggestion of how the government should be positioning the carbon tax in his way. What will be your target? Is $100? If it's long run, which year? Is it 2030 still?
Just to be clear, the government has not also committed to a 50 to 80.
50 to 80 is our range. So what is your range?
And there was well stated 58 to 133 with the midpoint being 100.
Okay, so that's your range is higher than the government, is it correct?
The lower bound is lower than the government's upper bound.
50 to 80, yours is 58 to 133.
Yes, the lower bound that I gave you is lower than the government's upper bound.
All right, okay. So can you please try to tell me, if you are the Minister of Sustainability and Environment, how would you glide to this number? Well, how would you glide? Okay, this is 2022. We are end of 2022. You're going to go out and say, company, this is the new glide path. How will you describe your glide path?
That was the content of my speech. I suggested that we could do it incrementally, the way that the ministry has suggested, but I also suggested that we could allow the specific level to adjust upward and downward according to economic conditions.
So are you then saying that we can go out to the world and say, sorry, I make the 2030 NDC on the basis of certain economic conditions. And now that the economic conditions are bad, there's a war out there, there is high inflation and energy, my NDCs don't count because I need to glide further out.
No, but I think I was clear that the adjustments upwards and downwards are the same way that business cycles go upward and downward. So you would have it lower in a given year because of economic conditions, but when things picked up, you would raise it back so that you met the original targets.
So you are suggesting a very variable carbon tax rate ends with 58 to 133, but
Where are
without
we?
knowing how it's going to get there, not even knowing what 2024 is going to be.
I think you would set a target, but be able to adapt to
Yeah, I think this
economic
is the
conditions.
part
The
where-
same way the
Say
interest
what's
rates
the
are
target
routine.
rate for 2024.
As I said, it's not complicated. You will set the target.
What is that rate? What
So-
is the number?
We can go with the government's proposed number, say start with $25,
Okay,
as
so
I said in my
25,
speech.
2025, are you going to stay with $25 as well, or
We
you
would
staying
have to look at economic conditions.
So to repeat,
Point of order, Mr. Speaker. I understand that when a member asks a question, the other member sits down, question is answered, vice versa. That's
I-
how
Discipline
that-
master is
for
here.
that. I will sit down. Okay. Please, can you please tell me, describe to me your carbon tax glide path in numbers, because I'm a business. I need to know. I speak.
Okay,
on a-
so firstly, I do not particularly like or favor this rule whereby, well, one has to sit down while the other is talking. I mean, of course, now Graceful is violating that rule and using it to an advantage because, I'm just standing here, I'm not moving, and that you, James Lim, you are always getting up and sitting down, getting up and sitting down, answering my question, right? As per the standard operating procedures in the parliament, right? I respect that, and I think it is correct for Pratam to raise it and to put Graceful in order, right? To put her into place for not recognizing or rather respecting, right, this rule. But at the same time, I do not agree with this rule. I do not think it is a good rule, right? We look at those parliament sessions in Taiwan, right, where the person questioning the minister per se, right, he doesn't need to sit down and come up and sit down and come up, right? He just stands there. In fact, the minister is at the podium, right? Like a witness, is like a witness stand, or it's like as if he's like the accused, right? And then now he's being scrutinized and questioned, right? And then while the member of Taiwan's parliament, whatever they call it, right, is going to also stand there, right, in another position to question him, and it's going to be to and fro. It's going to be to and fro, and no one needs to sit down. All right, so it is the Singapore style of parliament that is so heavy on orderly manner of questioning and answering, and then and of course we know who it benefits, right? Because the ruling party, the ruling establishment will then be able to hide behind these rules, right? To have whatever say they want, right? And then you, the poor thing opposition member, of course, already deprived of a lot of question time, and right, you because you are only given the time given to every MP, whereas the minister is given extra time because just by virtue of being the minister, right? Nothing wrong with having more time, but it is just we need to ask ourselves: are the MPs getting, especially the opposition MPs, being the only ones, right, in Parliament to raise alternative speeches and opinions? Are they given enough time? And also, not just in terms of speech, how about in terms of questioning? Are they able to follow up in their questioning, right? Let's say if they feel that the answer given to their parliamentary question was not sufficiently answered, can they stand up and ask follow-up questions, and that time allocated is very, very short. Okay, so I do not particularly like the rule that you need to sit down, stand up, sit down, stand up, but of course, since it is in the rule book and now Grace Fu is abusing it, violating it, it is correct to call her out for it. Let's continue watching.
Half of the business, I need to know. Can you please tell me with some certainty what is that variable portion? Even if you say 25,
So still
25,
trying
for
to
2 years
push
to
and
come,
push, you know.
45, I'm not too sure,
see,
but what will be?
It is a very remarkable stunt by the PAP all the time, trying to pin the opposition down as if we have all the knowledge and resources to do all the research and think tank work that is needed to come up with sound policies with exact figures and you know, the numbers, down to the numbers. When you, the PAP ruling government itself, refuses all the time, okay, to give the exact figures. How difficult was it even to give the breakdown of the HDB building construction costs, blah, 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 blah. Subsidies, you can't even tell us how many subsidies you give. A joke.
Variation.
So I'm happy to clarify again, we are not opposed to the original path. So for the next year and the subsequent year, we are comfortable with going with that $25 that was originally there. But I'm pushing for the flexibility to adjust it upward or downward, just to take account of the fact that economic conditions may alter the same
Flexible.
way we do for interest
Flexible
rates.
carbon tax pricing. She has to
I think
sit down
that,
and get up
Mr.
again.
Speaker,
Poor thing.
this is not a fiscal policy. This is a policy to change our energy mix and our energy use. So
So
whether
you see,
there is
they are always so sensitive, you see. Whenever they come up with a policy that is so good, so well thought out, behind closed doors, with all the opaque numbers, with all the opaque ways of getting at the numbers, the indices, and then, wow, you are not allowed to question. You are not allowed to scrutinize. Wow, once you question this particular area, wow, you are picking bones in a perfect chicken, right? You are 吹毛求疵, right? You are picking feathers in a beautiful chicken, right? You know, don't need to ask so many details for what? I already told you, and you have to suck it up, and if you eat it up, and if you have to believe me that this is the best thing, no scrutinizing, no questioning, flexibility here and there, no lah, let me do the job. One party rule is the best.
going to be an economic downturn or not. This is a change that we all need to make, and members have spoken so passionately
No
about the
one
need to.
is against the tax thing. No one is against the tax. James has said this over and over again.
Yes, the tragedies
The
of
caliber and quality of our parliamentarians from the ruling party these days. Oh my God. And these are the ministers. This is supposed to be the best cream of the crop already of the elite. Right? What about those who won't even utter a word of intellect in parliament? These are the ministers already. They are already the cream of the crop. The best people the PAP can find. And they are not able to come up with even good numbers. We're not even asking for good arguments. We are asking for numbers. Vote them
climate
out.
change that is helping us. So are we going to delay further? No. The answer is we all need to change. If there is an economic problem, if there's interest rate problem, of course we have to deal with it. We have to deal with it in other ways.
In other
Like the
ways,
signal to
in
the
other opaque ways that you are not qualified to question and scrutinize.
must be that this is a path that the government
Yeah,
is
nobody is
going
against
ahead.
that.
We will have to make investments with these numbers in mind. Bearing
Yeah,
in mind
cannot be changed.
that our
Cannot be questioned.
investments in the petrochemical industry,
You
or
decide
in,
everything,
in the power
right?
generation
You
industry,
decide
is
who
multi-year.
To benefit,
Multi-year.
who
So if we
to
have
suffer,
targets, carbon
who
tax
to lose
rates
out
that
more
cannot be
from your
even
equation.
certain for the next
who to benefit
5, 6
benefit
years,
from your
how
crony
can we make
capitalism.
long-term projections? I find it very difficult for
And it is
companies
not,
to do that.
we are
or
not
find it very
qualified
difficult
to
for
ask for
finances,
flexibility.
for banks to also do that. And here, I think I'm receiving slightly mixed messages. The message is, we want to fly the environmental flag. We want to be sustainable. We want to be able to address our constituents who want us to be
Isn't
as
that
green as
the
possible. But when it comes to
give
the
and
hard
take
decision of
that
making
all
changes,
countries face,
of
that
making
even your
company
own
change and
party
invest in
has
low-
put out questions asking for compensations here and there for given. This is always a difficult situation. This is always a difficult decision. For her to say that, wow, we want to do this, but you're stopping me from doing that, is ridiculous. It's ridiculous because I am sure the PAP behind closed doors also have that kind of debate. We are now just bringing that debate into parliament, into an open session of parliament for all to see. So whatever, if you are, we are not saying you are wrong, but if you are right, tell us why so. Do not shut down debate and hide it behind closed doors. I think that is the thing that we Singaporeans, that we Singapore voters have had enough, that we want a change to. If the PAP were able to be more transparent, I am sure even the most liberal of voters in Singapore would be more benevolent in our criticism of the PAP.
Reduce efficiency, reduce utility, reduce water, circular economy, reduce waste. Hang on, I think there's an economic condition and therefore, so we have to decide for ourselves. Is this carbon tax something that we need to do? And if we need to do we need certainty? If we need certainty, how do we address conditions that we do not foresee? If we have a COVID-19 again, touch wood, hope that we'll never have it, but if we have a COVID-19, we will have a major recession. Of course, we have to think about way to cushion, but that doesn't mean that we are turning back to fossil again. I mean, that's the message that we have been telling all the large emitters in the world in COP. Even though there's energy crisis out there, please don't turn your eyes away from the problem. So I hope.
So is she now like repeating some mantra from some globalist elite corporations that tell us this, that sell us this bloody idea about environmentalism while damaging the environment themselves? I don't know. You decide. I'm not going to give you all the answers. You decide. You as the voter of Singapore. You as a citizen of this world watching this video right now. This is the Singapore ruling party minister talking in the Parliament of the Republic of Singapore that many people think is so bloody right-wing. I'm saying no. I'm saying no. The PAP, the ruling party of Singapore, is a bloody socialist and fascist government combined. No different from communist China, Nazi Germany, or Soviet Russia. And it is now, today, in the modern context, promulgating the same propaganda that the globalist elite establishment in European Union and whatever nonsense are doing. See for yourselves, guys. See for yourselves. And it took the Workers' Party, a party that is more on the left, so-called, in Singapore, that is more, that has always advocated for a more inclusive and environmentally friendly Singapore. And she is now trying to use your word against you. Oh, didn't you want to support the environment? Didn't you want to protect the environment? So now I'm coming up with this tax, and why are you complaining? Boys and girls, the environment is not the only issue we are facing, right? As a real leftist, don't you think there are more important and crucial matters to attend to? The suffering of the people, the poverty of the general public. There is a time for everything. There are priorities. In a time when Singaporeans are suffering so much financially, the PAP goes on about carbon tax, being rigid about it, not giving concessions, and then on the other side of the aisle also 377A, and then shooting the opposition for not voicing out. Stop this bloody globalism nonsense now.